Monster Beverage Corporation is finally considering a portfolio strategy that doesn't solely focus on energy drinks. But is this the right move? In June of 2019, so this is a little over a year ago, Monster Beverage Corporation CEO Rodney Sacks at an annual shareholders meeting talked about what the future of Monster Beverage Corporation could look like. And he made mention that the company had appetite to bring alternative brands and to develop more beverages on the non-alcoholic space, but also within the alcoholic beverage market. And where did these kind of comments come from? I think kind of threw a lot of people off tilt, and the analysts that cover and were a part of that meeting did kind of mention that they thought it was this like tit for tat type of an emotional approach because Monster Beverage Corporation and the Coca-Cola Company that owns 17% of Monster Beverage Corporation were in a current kind of pending arbitration over the Coca-Cola Company wanting to launch Coke Energy, which is going to be a major competitor, regardless if it was just initially going to be in the European or the international markets. Rodney Sacks knew that it was definitely going to be in the US and that was going to be a major competitor. And if anybody's followed like beverage distribution for the longest time, when one of these portfolios start to create their own competitors within a category in which they have a distribution agreement, they tend to really throw all their energy towards that, and then that causes a bunch of issues. So Monster needed to kind of hedge against that risk that was happening with their partner, their minority shareholder, the Coca-Cola Company. There was also some things going on with just the contract that was signed in 2015. There was a 5-year non-compete that was on the non-alcoholic side, so Monster could not develop or do any type of mergers and acquisitions for 5 years. That is now dried up or is just about to dry up at this point in 2020. And then on the alcoholic side, there was really nothing. There was no clauses within the contract. They could either purchase or develop their own alcoholic beverage products and brands. Why I think this caught a lot of people off guard is because until that point, the agreement was pretty good. I mean, everybody was pretty happy. I think the distribution network had just kind of fully been completely changed over with Monster Energy, and the Coca-Cola Company was growing the brand pretty well. But because they threw that first stone, then Monster Energy needed to figure out how do we diversify away from this potential risk that could leave us really sitting on our hands if they decide to leave us or divest that ownership in the Monster Beverage Corporation. Why would Monster Beverage Corporation want to get away from energy drinks as a whole? I mean, energy drinks is one of the hottest areas within the beverage world. I think current numbers that I looked at, it's about a $12.8 billion US market. It's growing at somewhere around 9% year over year. So this is a very healthy, mature, attractive beverage category. And Monster as a whole owns, I think, somewhere around 25% of that market share in the United States. One of the issues in terms of Monster is that they do have a lot of competition that's happening in the energy beverage space. You have PepsiCo's kind of three-headed monster. They now have the Rockstar Energy brand that they just purchased. They just did a exclusive master distribution contract with Bang Energy. And then they also are redeveloping and repositioning their Mountain Dew energy kind of portfolio. Additionally, you have competition coming from Keurig Dr. Pepper. They own a bunch of different smaller energy brands. They also have a exclusive distribution contract with Adrenaline Shock, which is now being scaled out across the country. I've tried it a few times. It's a great product, so it does potentially have some legs behind it. I already mentioned that they had some competition coming from their owners, Coke Energy, their partners. So Coca-Cola was already kind of adding some pressure into that. And then you also had private labels specifically coming from like Amazon with their Solomo brand that does create a little bit more pressure into the system. And that's not even counting some of the kind of smaller emerging brands that are also kind of doing this kind of death by a thousand cuts type of scenario that's going on across all the CPG industry. Another thing that Monster Beverage Corporation is kind of thinking about is that their products are energy beverages, and energy beverages are 70% through one singular channel. The sales come from the convenience stores. And because of things like COVID-19, you might be thinking to yourself like, ooh, I don't know if I want to be stuck in a channel that's always kind of connect to the movement patterns of humans. If all of a sudden they have to be stay at home or restricted living, maybe it's better for us to not be so leveraged on one sales channel, and to diversify their business. It then creates some ability to then move into other sales channels in a deeper and stronger way. Additionally, I think Monster Beverage Corporation has some confidence over some of the recent product launches, innovations they've came up with. So Reign, I think in the last 14 months has accrued, I think 3.3% of the market, which is somewhere around $425 million of the energy drink market. Just in 14 months, it's the 5th largest US energy drink at this point. They also did some, I think, brand extensions, product extensions with their Java Monster or Dragon Tea lines that have done pretty well in the market. So I think overall, Monster's feeling pretty confident. They think, hey, we can go out and launch some products, or we can find the right targets, assets out in the market to acquire, and then roll this into a larger, diversified beverage portfolio. So talking about non-alcoholic beverages, like what is within the portfolio of Monster Beverage Corporation that can, or they're already kind of playing in that space, like what do they have as a whole? And all of these that they do have some element of energy, and that has to do with the contract they have with Coca-Cola. They were not able to obviously do things that didn't have an energy drink spin to it. So all of these categories is like plus energy drink. They do Muscle Monster, which is a protein shake, Hydro, which is a sports drink, Java Monster, which is a coffee, Juice Monster, which is obviously a juice, and then the Dragon Tea offering, which is, again, obviously a tea. Now, out of these current like non-alcoholic beverage categories that they're in, I think there's a few that they stick in and they kind of go deeper in and diversify away from this kind of plus energy side of it. I think coffee is the most obvious one. RTD coffees seem to be pretty hot right now, and it really kind of converges into what like energy is going to be in the future. I think they got to go deeper on the RTD coffee side. I think a non-caffeinated sports drink makes a lot of sense in this direction. And then also some like tea offerings that are not like tea plus energy, just has a more natural or sparkling tea element to it. What I'd leave on the cutting floor and not kind of add some non-caffeinated portions of, I wouldn't worry about the Muscle Monster. I don't think that is something that they can kind of add any more value to the already competitive or starting to be competitive market within the RTD protein shakes. And then also just like conventional juices. I don't think I would really consider Monster a juice brand or anything that they would come out with, at least on the traditional side, that I would be worried about. There's been this renaissance in juices right now, specifically around like things like vitamin C and things that have added like immune boosting properties, at least some call outs that some of these juice brands could make. But I don't think that's going to be something that Monster should really focus on in the future. So outside of the existing kind of categories they already play with, like where could they go with this? I think initially like a sparkling water, like a value-added sparkling water would make sense, one that has some caffeine to it. So following along with what they already have, they probably could already have launched that. That would be competitors with something like a AHA that Coca-Cola has. They could also ramp that up a little bit more, somewhere around 10 milligrams of caffeine per ounce. But I think the big elephant in the room in terms of non-alcoholic would be CBD or just cannabis as a whole. I think that makes a ton of sense for Monster to create some element of a CBD beverage. I know right now it's a little bit iffy in terms of like a food or beverage additive, but I think this is a natural play for Monster Beverage Corporation to have a CBD product. Maybe they go out and acquire that. I've talked about a bunch of different brands over the last year or so of my CBD videos. I think Recess makes a lot of sense for Monster Beverage Corporation to purchase, or they just create their own. I think there's this kind of yin and yang that needs to happen with a lot of the energy SKUs. You have them being kind of over-caffeinated, humans being over-caffeinated right now, having a lot of anxiety and stress. You need to have the counter to that, something to help bring people down, help them with sleep, things like that. So that would be the propositions, at least, that I would focus on if I was Monster and I was looking at some type of CBD beverage. Now, on the flip side, talking about like alcoholic beverages that Monster Beverage Corporation could either develop or look at some type of mergers and acquisitions deal. this is outside of the purview of the Coca-Cola contract. And because of that, that distribution would need to go to somebody else. They would need to look at like a big beer distributor. They already were involved with AB InBev, so I don't know exactly like how they left that, if that's kind of sour taste. If it is a sour taste, they probably can't go back to them unless they give them a few more pieces, maybe on the non-alcoholic side to distribute as well. But they are going to need to have a distributor in the beer network that would work with the alcoholic beverages. I think the most obvious category here would be to move into hard seltzers. This is kind of the darling within the alcoholic beverage category. The trailing 12 months market size of hard seltzers is somewhere around $2.32 billion, which is up 276% year over year, so massive growth. The hard seltzer category is dominated by two brands. You probably know them very well, White Claw and then Truly. While the two brands accounted for, I think, 88 or so percent of the category sales at the end of 2019, they only accounted for 78% share in the last 4 weeks. So this suggests an interest for consumers to try new products within the category, and an analyst recently said that Monster Hard Seltzer could garner a similar trajectory to their success of Reign, so somewhere around 3% within the first year. I think outside of hard seltzers, Monster Beverage Corporation could be looking at like malt beverages, like flavored malt beverages. They're already playing around with one kind of flavor profile. They have a Monster Mule. And then finally, they could be launching some type of spirit brand or buying a spirit brand to create some, what I'm about to just kind of talk about, like a way to bundle things together, like an energy drink and a spirit company together, because you can't have those things together. And this is the biggest kind of home run opportunity for the Monster Beverage Corporation, is to work directly with the FDA to kind of rewrite and re-examine, I think, the early 2010-11 phase where Four Loko was taken off of the market because they didn't want alcohol and an energy drink put together because of some of the safety issues. America is much different in the last 10 years. Energy drink market has exploded. This is now a very common, large, mature beverage category. I think people are naturally already putting together some energy drinks and alcoholic beverages already. So it's just natural for the FDA to kind of create some rules around this, close up some of the loopholes, because there's actually like this alcoholic coffee that's allowed to be in, and you've seen probably with a few brands recently. So there's some loopholes they need to just kind of consider. But whatever needs to happen with the FDA, I think if Monster Beverage Corporation could carve out some really good language for their Monster Energy brand plus alcohol, they would just dominate. I think people would underestimate how big that would be, especially with the younger kind of age demographic. So just to kind of end up this video, like, what is Monster Beverage Corporation? What are they setting themselves up for? What are they trying to either hedge away from or kind of inch towards? I think they're at a fork in the road right now. Either they can go in two directions. They can go towards diversifying and kind of getting themselves away from Coca-Cola just in case, or the other side happens where the Coca-Cola company is forced to kind of come in and purchase Monster Beverage Corporation. And that's mostly because of some of the competitive landscape on the energy beverage side for Coca-Cola company. So the one side, if they want to diversify away from the Coca-Cola company, in the short term, that's probably a lot more risky, and there's going to be a lot more things that need to happen. One, they're going to have to probably raise capital to do that. And then secondary, go and just kind of create a similar distribution deal to one of the other big beverage portfolios. That is, unless they want to kind of build out their own structure. Long term, that makes a lot more sense. If you control your own distribution, you control your own destiny. And I think that long term, that sets up much better for Monster Beverage Corporation, but that's going to take a lot of work and needs to be something that's understood long term. Secondary, with Coca-Cola looking to purchase Monster Beverage Corporation, that's mostly because PepsiCo's that three-headed monster that I talked about, if they show some really great results and they start to see a huge amount of market share gain in terms of the energy beverage category, I think Coca-Cola company needs to make a move and they need to get super aggressive. The only way to do that is to wholly own Monster Beverage Corporation. That could be something down the line and something to really pay attention to over the next probably 12 to 18 months. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to help support me, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up button on this video. If this is the first time you've been introduced to my videos, would love for you guys to be a part of my community by subscribing to my channel. I upload several videos just like this weekly. And if you guys want to connect further outside of this platform, I do include all of my social media links down below. I just want to thank you guys again for your time. Hopefully I gave you some value in return, and we'll see you guys on the next video.